I am David Benioff.
I'm Dan Weiss.
And every time I watch these titles, I'm reminded Angus Wall and his whole team at A52, what geniuses they are. I mean, just looking at this, and I think back to what we had originally written in our screenplay, which was something about a raven flying from the wall, flying out a window at Castle Black, down to King's Landing, and flying over Westeros. Sometimes it would go in and out of being a map. That was our big contribution. And then Angus took that pretty sloppy idea and came up with this brilliant concept, and it just gets better every year.
It's been great that we've been able to keep updating. That's an especially nice touch, the burning Winterfell that they added for this year. But the idea that we get to keep growing the map and keep changing things as the world of the story changes, it keeps it fresh, and it lets us keep working with Angus, which we will find any excuse to do. And Hamid and Kirk and all those guys.
And impossible to imagine this title sequence without Ramin Djawadi's score. His theme has become so known worldwide, and we came so close to not having Ramin, which is the scary thing. You know, it's down to crunch time in terms of needing a new composer, and we're asking Evian Clean, who would you recommend for us? Like, just use your blink reaction, first name that comes to your head. And he said, Ramin Djawadi. And Ramin said, no, I'm too busy. And then we begged him and finally got him.
There we go.
Just so everyone knows, this episode was directed by the two of us.
Thank you, David.
Absolutely, Dan. And next year we'll direct another one, and Dan will get the credit.
I won't give you credit. I'm not going to be as big about it.
This is an example of a shot that was so easy to write in the script and envisioned as a single camera move, and then depended completely on, Matt Jensen, our brilliant DP, and the great camera operating by Sean Savage.
Yeah. This is really one of those places where if you didn't have a team that was operating at the level that these guys are operating on, we never would have been able to do this, because we never would have been able to make the day if we had to try 30 times to get this move down as it was. I think I got it in 5 or 6, and it was just really impressive all around.
Typical Northern Irish day where it was sunny for a few minutes and cloudy and overcast for much more of the time. If you look closely, there's not much sky continuity. But we had some good wind, which is important for these
We know you guys
shots.
are all watching for sky continuity. That's what makes or breaks the show. Some nice visual effects. Arrows. I like that extra also.
Yep. The corpse in the boat playing the late Lord Hoster Tully is actually Chris Newman, one of our prized producers, without whom it would be impossible to imagine making the show. So much of the show is what we need to actually produce on schedule and get everything done comes down to what's in Chris's head. He's the one who figures out the schedule and so many other things, and so we rewarded him by
making him sit completely emotionless in a boat for us.
That we then set on fire.
Yeah, we did almost set him on fire.
Yeah.
I think this was the first day that we had. Yeah, there he is. I think this was the first day that we had Tobias and Clive, respectively, Edmure and Blackfish, and really got to see the interplay between these two guys in action, and it was such a great, pleasant surprise, because they were both so fantastic. We were just so lucky to get these guys.
You shut your mouth about that damn Mill. And don't call him nephew.
Edmure is such a difficult part, because it'd be so easy to play him as just this, as a fool, and just go over the top with the stupidity of him. But, of course, Edmure doesn't think of himself as a fool. He comes from a noble family. He's well-educated. He's well-intentioned. And Tobias somehow managed to walk that very fine line. Never mocked the character.
There's glory enough to go around.
It's not about glory.
Yeah, and Clive has a real John Wayne quality, which is something that may have been common enough when John Wayne was an acting concern, but is pretty rare now.
Is he there now?
And to find it and to be able to put it in the show and use it to your advantage is a real gift.
Into our country where we could surround him.
Looking at that Tully armor, again, thinking about how lucky we were to find Michelle Clapton as our costume designer, and how she comes up with something really distinctive for each of the houses. And with the Tullys, of course, the fish as their sigil, and you have the fish scale armor, which just works so perfectly.
Instead, I have a mill.
I love that moment earlier in the last scene when you see Edmure in his armor walking past Gemma Jackson's carved wood fishes, and you kind of feel the echo of the armor in the scales of the fish, and it just shows such a great collaboration between Gemma and Michelle. You can really tell that the production design and the costume are on the same wavelength.
Yeah, this set for River Run worked tremendously well, and it was so good that right after we finished shooting on it, Gemma and her team had to tear it down and put up the twins. One of the great things about working on a show that goes on for a number of years is just watching the actors grow into their roles and become more and more comfortable with them, and just thinking about, the first time we saw Richard Madden at Nina Gold's office and first heard him read, and to see him here now, and he's really become, the King in the North. It's great fun, it's great fun working with people that you really like and with actors that you admire so much. It's great fun writing for them, and it's just a whole different thing, season 3, writing for people we know so well.
Speaking of fun writing for, this is a scene full of people who are all fun writing for. Being able to play them off each other was great. Very little dialogue in the first 10 or so minutes of this episode. It was fun to try our hand at visual storytelling. Jokes, hopefully.
Some of these actors I don't think get enough credit for how funny they are. That little move that Aidan does right there. Conleth Hill might be the funniest in a cast full of funny people. Well, Conleth and Peter both. And Lena, God, we got a lot of funny actors. Some of Lena's facial expressions in this scene, her eye rolling. I've seen it, I don't know, we've probably watched this scene 200 times by this point, and every time she does this one eye roll in reaction to something Tyrion says.
At one point, it got dropped from a cut somehow, and we got a cut back and it was missing. We both immediately were like, where the hell is that great reaction shot? I think the caliber of these actors, so much of it, you can just gauge by how great their reaction shots are, and they're always working. It's not about turning off when their lines are done. It is a result. You could watch one of Lena's takes in a scene where she says 2 lines and be completely with the scene, just watching the scene play off her. Peter did a nice little squeak. Nice, yeah. I always like that last squeak.
Intimate, lovely table. Better chairs than the old small council chamber. Conveniently close to your own quarters. I like it.
We kind of like the idea of giving you a sense of the power politics between these people, having it play out in front of you without actually having them say anything seemed like a fun thing to go for, and hopefully I would think it worked pretty well.
Do you mean to tell me that none of you has any notion of where he is?
We are trying, my lord.
Try harder. What do we have then?
Robb Stark and most of his banner men are in River Run for the funeral of his...
Never seen anyone make Sean Bean laugh the way Conleth Hill used to make him laugh. Back when Sean was still alive and well. Well, Sean's still alive and well. Back when Ned was such a major part of our show. I just remember one point in Malta, I think, looking over and seeing Sean cracking up. I'd never seen him cracking up before. I think I'd seen him smile once or twice, but not cracking up. And of course, it was Conleth. It's kind of our set joker.
She has always been positively predisposed toward me.
A successful courtship would make Lord Baelish...
Aidan just plays Littlefinger so creepily perfectly.
Titles do seem to breed titles.
You'll leave for the Eyrie as soon as possible and bring Lysa Arryn into the...
It's always just such a pleasure watching how terrified everybody on set is of Charles Dance.
People who've taken up arms against him.
Far be it from me to hinder.
He's actually a very nice guy, but he has a Taiwan-esque bearing that he kind of carries around in his everyday life a little bit that I think can make him a frightening person.
You want to make sure you know exactly what your note is before you approach Charles. Yeah, whether it's a direction or a script note or whatever. You don't want to go up to him and just...
Not a whole lot of you knows. Try to write it out beforehand.
One of the nice things about, watching Peter and Lena together, they're such close friends off screen. I think it really helps them play these combative siblings.
Don't want to miss Gary Lightbody's cameo, Snow Patrol frontman, on the horse singing. great singer, great human being. Maybe not the world's greatest horseman. He was riding back and forth all day on that horse was what got to him after a while. But he was a great sport. He's been a big friend to the show, and it's been a pleasure to get to know him.
All my life I've been hearing Jamie Lannister.
Sometimes it's really hard casting a role, and sometimes you get lucky early. That was the case with Brienne. Gwendolyn came in, read, and that was it. We didn't have to see anyone else. She was just it.
And literally, I think it was before she even spoke, it was, you kind of knew she was right, and then it was just a question of, is her voice going to, in some way, she can have a high squeaky voice. That's going to be a problem. Then we realized she had a beautiful voice, and we were all set. It's been really fun watching these two guys off screen kind of start to take on a bit of their on-screen relationship in the way they constantly are at each other. Kind of like brother and sister.
Although, unlike on-screen, Gwendolyn is much better at giving back to Nikolaj verbally than Brienne is.
Well, she calls him Princess. I think she calls him Princess and It.
She's a nickname for everyone on the show, I think, right? Fun Jones.
Fun Jones.
I'm scared to think what she calls us.
She never told us ours.
What am I?
A guest.
The end of the crossroads is so strategically located that everyone stops by there, no matter where they're going in the Seven Kingdoms. You have to stop by the end of the crossroads.
Paul Kaye, who plays Thoros of Myr, was a real find. He was very well known in England as a comedian, I believe largely for a character named Dennis Pennis, who was maybe the first person to do that kind of guerrilla celebrity questioning, going up to people on red carpets and asking really inappropriate things. But I don't know how well known he was as a dramatic actor, but he came in and his reading for Thoros really blew us away. He really elevates all the scenes he's in. That's a fun bit.
Watch your head. Up we go. Walk up.
We got about 12 different loaves of wolf-shaped bread
We're about to leave.
to choose from. This was the one that made us laugh the most.
Your what?
Find the funniest bread.
Because it was close. Some of them just were too amorphous
Yeah.
and didn't have that kind of distinctive wolf fur the way it's represented in the sigil. This one was, it was close. You can kind of see the wolf.
This is what we do on set. Choose bread.
You sure?
I'm sure.
A very touching goodbye from Ben Hockey.
Ben Hockey, I don't think gets enough credit for how good he is.
What is it?
The way he says "you sure" just there, after the whole winter hell thing.
Actually a very, very smart guy, Ben.
Yep.
Yes, it is.
Sometimes if you're smart enough to play dumb well, people think that that's just who you are, but that's not who he is at all.
Well, be safe. Yeah, you too. Don't get stabbed. You don't. Burn your fingers.
It's a rare example of a happy ending in Game of Thrones. Guy finds a job he's suited for and
Well, who says it's an ending?
gets to do it happily ever after.
How do we know?
Maybe we'll just kill him some other season just to keep it consistent.
Hot Pie vs. the Mountain, season 4.
His reaction here when she calls his name, I always enjoyed.
Yeah, the kind of double take.
Hey, Hot Pie!
I always enjoyed what he did there.
I think we digitally closed his mouth at the end there, didn't we?
We did. He had a line, but we decided it was better without
I think he
line.
said thanks.
Thanks.
And we thought, no, we don't really need that thanks. But we had every single take. He was opening his mouth to say thanks, so we begged our VFX guys to throw in a little favor and close his mouth.
They give us freebies. Buy 8 dragon shots, get 1 closed mouth free.
I've missed you, Uncle. Father missed you too. From the day you left. Maybe he never said it.
This is just one of Michelle Fairley's powerhouse scenes this season, in which she has so many.
I was surprised when he died.
And talk about just ease of directing. I mean, you don't really have to do much of anything someone as good as Michelle. She comes in really knowing the way a scene should be played, and maybe if you have some minor adjustment, you basically say, could we just turn it down or turn it up one notch, and then next take will be up one notch.
I don't think he remembered what started it. He asked me to stop calling myself.
And again, you know, just thinking about how much luck goes into the creation of any show, I guess. You know, I remember the first time I saw Michelle acting was on stage in London in Othello, playing Iago's wife. And I've seen Othello a few times. I've never noticed Iago's wife, but I've never thought about that character. And for whatever reason, Michelle was so great in that role that I came out of the play just thinking, who was that woman? I mean, she just, so much power. And now at this point, can't imagine any other Catelyn Stark.
No, she's just remarkable.
Come back to you. And I would sit at this window every day when the sun came up, waiting.
Her audition scene was the scene where she arrests Tyrion, also at the end of the Crossroads, coincidentally. I just remember that performance, just how, that's a tough scene to pull off. I mean, just see so easily going into melodrama or playing it too soft, and she's just, she's a tiny little lady, and she's got such steel in her. I mean, she's just...
Having her play against Clive is one of those places where you really get the sense of just how tiny she is.
Yeah. Clive's a big man.
Very big guy.
Remain strong if he's to prevail, and you must remain strong for him.
It should be said that the real Michelle Fairley is much, much more fun to be around than Catelyn Stark. She is a tremendously fun person to hang out with.
I like to think that Catelyn would be fun if
she has a lot of
someone in her family wasn't getting killed every...
Kind of makes it hard to,
every 2 weeks.
To be fun.
This kid was so good, we decided to bring him back for season 4.
Yes.
Yeah, totally different role.
Followed the Deadwood path of actually bringing somebody back in 2 different roles.
Playing another Lannister.
My husband doesn't eat children. Unless...
Really enjoy how deadpan Una played this.
Mm-hmm.
See?
That's the real breath. You see the breath coming out of their mouth. One of the great things about shooting in Belfast is it's always cold and it's always
humid.
Wet. Yeah, so you just get a lot of breath.
It'll be 60 degrees and you'll still be able to see breath sometimes because of the humidity. Whereas here, it will be freezing and sometimes it'll be so dry that you don't see breath.
So this shot was a complicated one on a techno crane, and when we got there it was very windy, as you can kind of tell. And we were having a lot of technical problems just with the camera, kept breaking down, so we ended up not getting this shot done until about 12:30, which is a real problem when you're shooting in Iceland in November and you have to wrap around 4 o'clock because you lose the light.
You said there was dead crows.
Yeah, there was a lot of wind on that day, and even though it was a stabilized head and all that, we ended up needing to kind of punch in a bit on the shot and get some of the wind shake out of it to keep that move smooth.
I think snow kept getting in the lens and stuff. Yeah.
So much snow that they had to keep going out with blowtorches and thawing the horse bits. When they freeze and they get very cold, they turn the color of kind of salmon. So it looked like there were just big sides of salmon sitting out there in the snow, which wasn't the story we were trying to tell. Slaughtered salmon. The White Walkers are just salmon murderers.
He's a long way from home.
Our props department did such a great job with these horse carcasses. It goes without saying that no actual horses were harmed in the filming of the scene. They did a beautiful, grisly job making them look so real, and they're kind of covered with snow, so it's hard to even see it, but they were a grim collection of horse parts.
Not real.
Fake horse parts.
Fake.
Old friend.
Hard near Castle Black. When I give the signal, hit them in the night. They've got a big old wall to hide behind, but it only guards one side.
We'll meet again.
Aye.
It's kind of fun to watch Kit have to process all the things you know he's processing and not really have anybody to discuss it with.
I remember when Mackenzie Cook first came in to read for Orella, and we were kind of shocked. We could get Mackenzie Cook? It just never occurred to us to be a possibility. I mean, we've been fans of his work for so long, going back to the original British Office. And we ended up writing so much more for the part once Mackenzie got the job because he's just so good, so we ended up writing this whole kind of story between him and Ygritte.
Yeah, it just didn't seem right to have an asset like that and not make use of it.
Ghost?
Ghost.
So we've just cut from Iceland to Northern Ireland, and all the snow is real in Iceland and all of it's fake here. But you can occasionally kind of tell.
Between Stuart and the regular effects and our VFX guys, they do a really good job of generally making it seem pretty seamless.
Yeah.
Smaller flock than
Yeah, this is a great set. I mean, Gemma Jackson did such a phenomenal job with Craster's Keep.
Can we?
Love the outside of it, love the inside. You know, Craster's kind of thrown there.
I think this year, Bob Pugh, especially this year, who plays Craster, did such an outstanding job.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really brought it.
Vern Gorman, another actor we were delighted to get. And again, we went to write more and more for once we got him.
Yeah, just really, it's an added bonus of shooting over there where they're British actors who you've come to know their work through British TV or film, and when one of them comes in unexpectedly and actually wants to be on the show, someone like Byrne, who was such a great guppy in Bleak House, and just was such a great quality, and he's someone who, again, is you bring front and center and write more for, because it just seems like a crime not to.
Last time I saw John Bradley, I whooped him at FIFA football. John's a big football fan. I'm telling my FIFA football story here.
But his read of, I was going to point out a read of it line. It was a good read.
Oh, that's not really as important as, you know.
What was the score of the FIFA game? When you say whooped him, what is a whooping?
I think a whooping is like 5-2 or something. I mean, I feel like an Englishman should beat an American, really, because it's their national sport, and you know, if he beat me at Xbox Baseball, that would be embarrassing. That laugh sounds like it's some kind of effect, like as if we spliced.
We asked him. We said, can we take the pig in the temps? We thought it was like a temp thing where there was a pig sound that had crossed over onto his laugh, and they said, no, that's actually his dialogue. So like in that case, definitely keep it in. This is a nice shot designed by Matt Jensen.
Yeah, I can't speak enough about Matt Jensen, our DP, and what a phenomenal job he did, especially with two novice directors coming in who really didn't know our asses from our elbows. And
a very subtle zoom in there, so when you get into this side, you're in a much closer shot on Sam than you were at the beginning. Yeah, Matt is brilliant DP.
One more push should do it.
Anna Murray practicing childbirth.
This was a tricky shot coming up because we needed to convey without dialogue that it was a boy, which means to reveal certain obvious things.
That's right. We actually can probably say now that the first baby that we had to swap out for a different baby because once the parents realized what needed to be conveyed, they were not comfortable with their baby being used in that fashion. Which surprised us.
Also love this shot, the way the hood sucks in and out with Theon's breathing right there. Just so creepy. This was the first scene we shot for the episode.
Yep.
So, Ewan Ryan, did I pronounce that right? He's got one of the trickier names.
You're never going to really get it right unless you're Welsh.
Ewan. We originally saw him, an actor we've loved for a long time. He came in to read for Jon Snow and was phenomenal, and it actually came down to him and Kit Harington. These two just fantastic young English actors, or sorry, Ewan's Welsh. And, excuse me.
That was a huge faux pas.
And we went with Kip, but you know, both would have been so good in such different ways, and always had Ewan in mind for something later, you know, and was waiting for the right part. And then, of course, he became well known for Misfits, which he did a great job on. And then this role, by the time you're hearing this, it will be public knowledge that he's Ramsay Snow. One of the big parts to cast this season, and couldn't be happier to get him.
Unless somebody watches the commentary after seeing each episode.
That would just be silly.
That seems unlikely. Who would do such a thing?
Who would do that?
You refuse to tell me where you're going.
This is a shot that actually took a long time to get right. Just getting the timing on their walking down. I think there's a little visual effects in there to get them where we wanted them at the time we wanted them there.
To move their bodies,
Yeah.
You are the son of fire. I am sworn
We're
to serve you.
seeing, I think, humanizes both these characters who can be kind of stern and unyielding in their ways, and to see them reacting like almost like a jilted boyfriend, ex-girlfriend dynamic really kind of dimensionalized them, I thought.
As so often the case, the actors often do even more with the non-dialogue bits. We write the dialogue, but so many of their expressions just come from them, and there's a moment here where he's basically confessing his love for her, and her look of pity. It's just the absolute last thing that a man like Stannis Baratheon ever wants to see is pity.
I want you.
Here it comes. Kind of senses it. Yeah. Oh, don't want to get that look ever. Ouch.
Poor dear.
Your fires burn low, my king.
Oh, you don't want to hear that either.
There is another way, a better way.
You told me your magic requires a king's blood.
Yes.
I'm the one true king.
Some of the actors that we cast just fit in so easily and so well with the roles as we imagined them. Some of them just make them so different. I mean, Stephen came in and took Stannis in a different direction, really, and to me, a much more interesting direction. He's made him so complex, and he's just such a tortured soul, and Stannis is definitely supposed to be a tortured soul, but he brought qualities to that part that I hadn't conceived of until I saw him play it.
Speaking of torture.
Yeah, the Walk of Punishment.
The title of the episode. What did you say it sounded like? A Slayer album.
It does sound heavy metal, yeah. So now we're in Essaouira, doubling as Astapor, and it's one of the great things about the show is just being able to travel to so many countries. Just in this episode, we shot in Northern Ireland and Iceland, in Morocco, in Croatia. And there's some things you can fake with visual effects, and there's some things you can't really. And just, for instance, the quality of the light here, that harsh, bright light that you get here in Morocco is so different from, everything we see in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
There's no VFX in this shot. That one right there. It's there. It's this medieval walled city. Our location scouts talk about unsung heroes. Just do such a good job finding the right places for us to shoot each scene.
The only visual effects in the scene, I think, is the last shot of the scene and erasing some signage, looking in the other direction.
I think one of those early shots at the left side of frame had some buildings that were a bit modern.
Windows and signage and whatnot.
They do not rape. We do not put cities to the sword unless they're ordered to do so.
Just fun throughout this whole sequence of watching Emilia process. In hindsight, what it is Daenerys has got planned, and she knows what it is she's got planned, but she's learned the lesson of self-reliance from season 2, and she's not going to tell either of these guys. In hindsight, knowing what she knows, it's fun watching her play it without these guys actually knowing it themselves.
Famous line from the book right here. Ian Glenn's one of those actors where you feel okay throwing him some tricky moments, some moments that would sound really dull coming from any other mouth, and he's just such a fantastic performer, and he's got so much charisma that nothing he says is ever boring. That's why we just keep writing boring dialogue for him.
Yeah, because, somebody's got to get bored. Lovely singing voice as well.
Yeah.
Does a good Ziggy Stardust. We have Dan Hildebrand playing Krasniz, the slaver, with a wonderful evil relish. And he and Natalie Emanuel, who is Missandei, who comes to have a rather large role in the scene, had a lot of their dialogue in Valyrian, which is the language that David Peterson designed for the show.
Now, is this High Valyrian or Low Valyrian?
Well, she speaks High Valyrian, I believe, and he speaks Low Valyrian, which is kind of the street Valyrian, the debased version of a
Pigeon Valyrian.
It's like a Latin Vulgate, I think. I'm out of my depth talking about languages.
any will fall in battle, I'll need the boys to pick up the swords.
Missende is kind of our C-3PO.
Master Kasnis says you cannot afford.
They really got their routine on this day, especially just down pat, where they were both talking over each other, and she's translating on the fly and kind of adjusting what he's saying to make it more fit for her consumption.
Yep.
They did a fantastic job.
The Harpy Sigil is one of our favorites. It's actually a really good metal album. Could have the title Walk of Punishment and then that as the cover. The
I know.
Harpy.
Plan B.
Were we going to get some Harpy t-shirts?
We were supposed to get some Slavers Guild t-shirts. Ja Astapori.
So you try to get all the shots that you want on any given day. There's one shot here that we wanted that we ended up running out of time for. Which is you see this look that Danny throws to this last little slave girl here, and then we're supposed to get the reverse looking down at Danny from up there, and we ran out of time, and who knows, maybe the scene would have been that much better with it.
You will win the throne with dragons, not slaves, Your Grace.
One of the great things about the costumes that Michelle designs, she designs them and they build them, and then they spend almost as much time breaking them down again, so nothing ever looks brand new, unless maybe Cersei or Marjorie is wearing a dress that was just made for them. But for the most part, the characters are wearing clothes that they've been wearing for years. And again, so many of the different departments, it's making the world seem real. It's not our world, but it should seem like a real world. And so much of that comes down to Michelle and the wardrobe. Jorah's new armor for this season incorporates both dragon motifs, because he's sworn his allegiance to Daenerys Targaryen. There's also a bear sigil above his belly button there.
You kind of have the slave collar holding up the dress on Missandei that Daenerys in later episodes adopts as a kind of sign of solidarity with the people she's liberating.
And then the Unsullied uniforms. They had to look great, but they also had to be practical. They had to be inexpensive because Michelle's team had to create so many of them, and they had to make the guys look tough. We had some Unsullied in the original pilot that we shot, and the problem was it was more the way the outfits are described in the books, and unless you got really big fellas, no one looks all that intimidating in those costumes. So Michelle created these ones that, for almost any body type, you look like a tough guy if you're wearing an Unsullied uniform.
It was a fun thing watching them when they were the Unsullied background actors were going to and from set, watching them walk through the streets in formation in their costumes, and Essaouira definitely turned a few heads.
This is a scene where we wrote a little bit too much dialogue for the length of the walk and talk, so that's why the actors are forced to speak so quickly. And then we realized that you couldn't really tell the difference. This shot here, you can't really tell if she's passing the same spot again and again, so we could just keep running it.
It's actually one of the beauties of having face masked.
Yeah, you don't realize you've just passed the same guy.
Yeah, you can double up.
Right before we shot the scene, I saw one of the actors was wearing a wedding ring, one of the Unsullied background actors. One of my favorite shots in the whole episode right there.
You know, the expression she gives at the end.
The wonderful Esme Bianco.
A surprising place to keep
Daniel Portman Pod's reaction coming up here when Tyrion calls his name is one of my favorite little pieces of performance.
Yeah.
It's kind of very subtle. Could have hammed it up and he didn't.
Kind of wish we had more scenes between Littlefinger and Tyrion. They're so good together.
Only my life. Not all that significant, I'm afraid.
You should have him knighted.
Beautiful lighting right here from Matt Jensen.
No wonder everyone spends so much time in the brothel.
The lighting, yeah.
I owe you a significant debt. Our red-headed friend. You secured her release when the Queen detained her.
Oh, that. Of course. A simple misunderstanding.
Apparently, Her Grace believed that you two had some sort of special relationship.
We don't. I did fuck her once.
I know.
Littlefinger says I know the second time he hears.
I know. But how would the Queen get that idea?
These are the thing when you watch an episode of television 400 times, and you really focus on the subtleties.
Yeah.
Keep a low profile.
If I had a gold dragon, for every time I heard that joke, I'd be richer than you are.
Well, you are richer than I am.
Good point.
They're only
His little decision here to look out the door at his whores while he delivers the line, try whores.
Trivial, even. You want a real challenge? Try whores.
I've tried.
It's a fun choice.
Part of the reason we couldn't look out the door is because it doesn't lead to the right place.
It's all a lie.
It's all fake.
None of this is real.
Always fun writing for Jerome.
Looks like dull reading.
You think all reading is dull reading?
It's an opinion I share with some of the finest men I know.
The secret history of the Seven Kingdoms is written in these pages.
Unless Lord Twatbeard made up a bunch of numbers to hide what he's really up to.
Unless he made it all up, yes. Podrick, do keep up.
Yes, Lord.
Podrick?
Yes, Lord.
After a long consultation with the
A lot of complaints about Daniel about having to shoot this next scene.
suitable reward for the services you've provided, over and above what might be considered reasonable. Tell me.
Yeah, so it occurred to us at some point, Tyrion hasn't really ever given Podrick a reward for saving his life. Tyrion seems, he's a Lannister. He pays his debts. So.
Definitely above and beyond the Call of Duty, I think, on Podrick's part.
Yep.
This is Pixie Lynott.
One of 4 women in the world who can perform a proper
An excellent contortionist.
My lord, I don't even...
She's here to thank you for being a thoroughly respectful fellow.
A little shout out to George there at the Mirror and He's Not, which is how he famously described his narrative difficulties of working through the marine sections of his novels.
Pace yourself, lad.
For years I've heard that Littlefinger is a magician. Whenever the crown needs money, he rubs his hands.
I think Matt Jensen did such a fabulous job of making these sets feel, these indoor-outdoor sets feel integrated and feel real.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tricky thing to do. It's so easy for something like this to look fake.
What's wrong with that? We can't afford to pay it back. That's what's wrong with it. The crown.
Yeah, this whole complex, new rooms designed for season 3 by Gemma Jackson. Serve so many functions. I mean, you've got Tyrion's chamber in here, you've got the small council room that we just saw before, and Tywin's office, and they're redressed for various other locations, and just worked beautifully well.
Yeah, her designs, her work was so great out of the gate, and it just kept getting better season after season. And her set dresser Rob also just did such a great job making these rooms feel real and lived in.
He's a squire. You don't pay him.
You were talking before about the experience of writing for actors that you know so well. I've never had that experience before. I mean, this is my first time working on a TV show, and when you're writing a feature script, you don't know if the movie will ever get made, and you certainly don't know who's going to get cast in it if it does get made. So, after years now of working with Peter and Jerome and Daniel now, his second season, this being a second season, you just have a comfort level with them, both on set, but also just writing for them and knowing their strengths. In this case, so many. I mean, there's just such a good rapport between them. This kind of ease, humorous ease they have on screen.
Sit down, Podrick. We're going to need details. Copious details.
Great look here from Daniel.
Here we get into some of the more complex stuff we had to do for this episode anyway.
We didn't know until, I think, about a week or two before we shot this, whether we'd be allowed to shoot here at Tullamore Forest.
There was apparently some kind of tree rot spreading through the forest, and they were going to quarantine the whole area, which meant no vehicles could come in or out.
So the problem is we had scouted this location and fallen in love with it, and just anywhere else wouldn't have felt the same. Wouldn't have had these incredible landscapes here.
We got really lucky. This whole opening section would have had to been shot somewhere much less visually interesting. Here's where Camilla and Prue and Paul Herbert, the horse master and stunts respectively, really got to open up and strut their stuff. Some great riding in here, and Alfie did a bit of it, but stunts filled in the stuff that it wasn't really safe to have him do.
The horse that Theon's riding, you see throughout the season being several different characters ride that horse. Fortunately, I didn't realize till too late that he's got a very distinctive brand on one hip.
We did a lot of work on this day especially. There really wasn't 3 days in total for this whole sequence, and the bulk of this actual chase was I think it was pretty much only one day. And there were just a lot of shots to get. This one especially is the kind of one that takes a fair amount of time. Once he lands here, he's actually in a different location. To destroy all the magic for you. Yeah, completely different than where he was knocked off the horse.
So people ask if we were nervous, when we shot our first episode, and really was not all that nervous going into it, just because we had such familiarity. We know the crew so well, we know the cast so well, but the scene I was nervous for was the horse chase.
Yeah. It's one of those things that you really don't know what you've got until you start to put it together, because you're just scrambling to get as much good footage as you can.
No. I'm gonna fuck you into the dirt. No, please. No. No, please. No.
Well, shout out to our VFX department. It's a great shot right there.
Yeah.
Only a few frames, that arrow coming right towards you, but man, they did a good job with it.
It's one of those ones they actually have to kind of cheat reality, because an arrow coming right at the screen you wouldn't even see. It would just be a dot, so they had to kind of fake the path of it a bit.
Yep.
And this, as we called it, the Miller's Crossing shot coming up, was one that I think they did a really nice job on too.
Yeah, we pretty much stole this execution shot from the great Coen Brothers movie, Miller's Crossing.
If you're going to steal from somebody, it may as well be Coen Brothers.
There it is.
They just didn't have an arrow.
No. So we win.
Yeah.
Come, my lord. You're a long way from home. Winter is coming.
Saved. Talk about luck and casting and having somebody show up. That is a real pleasant surprise, seeing Noah Taylor show up on tape. And this is somebody we've been watching since he was in Shine.
I'll take the big bitch first.
And have been so good at so many different things. The guy is such a chameleon. Did an amazing screen Hitler. And he was in so many films and so many shows. He's another person that we really kind of expanded a role to accommodate just how much he had to offer.
Yep. Originally I thought we wanted a big physically imposing guy for the part. And then Noah came in and read, and we realized it really didn't matter how big he was. He was just so much more frightening. We shot the scene over 2 nights, the bulk of the dialogue on the first night. The second night with the hand chop, Nikolaj got incredibly sick, some kind of stomach virus. We thought we might have to rush him to a hospital. I mean, it was that bad, where he was just lying down in his trailer, and we went to see him and find out if he could do it, and much to his credit, he came and shot, the most important scene of the entire episode, and did a great job with it. I've never seen him look that bad.
Apparently when you're really, really nauseous, having another actor breathing 1 inch away from your nose is not always the best thing in the world. My parents were visiting set this night, I seem to remember.
Yeah, that's right.
They were very impressed by how awful Nikolaj had managed to make himself look. It's nice to watch Gwen kind of serve as our window into this scene, watching this, wondering what's going on, starting to suspect maybe a little bit ahead of Jamie himself that all is not as well as it seems to be.
Yeah, Jamie is so used to just getting out. He's been in so many situations where it looks like it's all going to go bad, and somehow he's managed to work his way out of it one way or another. And finally comes up against someone where his charm and his money don't matter.
Yeah. The shot coming up, the final shot of the episode, is one that obviously was of a primary concern to us, that we spent a lot of time blocking out and working. It's one of those things that involves, between camera and visual effects and stunts, so many different departments need to coordinate to make a shot like this really work. Because if it doesn't, it all comes down to those 2-3 seconds of image that, if they don't really sell, the hand chop kind of falls flat. And I think they all just did such a great job of making it truly horrible. Somewhere, somebody was looking at lots of very horrible pictures on the internet. Luckily, it doesn't have to be us.
Suppose you'll be wanting something to eat?
Famished, actually.
Think we've got a spare partridge on the fire?
I do like partridge.
Bring the bird over here. And the carving knife.
The song at the end, we were looking for the best possible band to recreate the Bear and the Maiden Fair, which we always thought of as, a song that comes straight from George's books, and that we always thought of as kind of the ultimate drinking song in Westeros. And so we wanted that flavor, a band that felt appropriate, you would hear playing in a tavern, and, wanted a really rousing song. And we wanted it to be jarring, and it was. People are split. Some people, I think, really liked it at the end. Some people don't, and we're good with that, at least I am.
I, for one, liked it.
I really like it, too, and I like the fact, actually, that it's controversial, because you gotta take chances with this stuff. So, and the Hold Steady just did such a good job, and they made the song so much better and more rousing. And when we heard their final rendition of it, I think it was stuck in my head for the next 2 weeks.
We were with George at the time, actually. We all were just laughing at how great we thought it was. It's like that effect, that American Werewolf in London effect, where something really tragic and horrible happens, and then you go into Blue Moon, and it is jarring, as David said, and it's supposed to be. Well, that's it for us.
Thank you very much. If you've listened to this whole thing, you are either a masochist or a true fan, or both, probably.
Usually there's a little bit of both in there.
Thank you for watching and listening. See you on the next one.
Goodbye.